Hello, my name is Meridian Grace, and I'm here today with Olivia, and we're going to be talking to you a little bit about an issue that is dear to my heart. It's an issue I've dealt with a lot as a woman, and an issue that many of you may be concerned about, and it has to do with weight loss. And what we'd like to do is dispel some of those ideas that are out there, all of the marketing hype around weight, and see if we can help you to come to a deeper understanding about the wisdom and brilliance of your own bodies, the emotions that can be underneath why our bodies would want to hold on to weight no matter what you do, and also the biochemical individuality that is such an important part of helping us to actually be able to lose weight in a way that supports our health, that what we end up doing is losing fat, not muscle, and actually become healthier in the process rather than de-nourishing ourselves and leaving ourselves in real trouble because we haven't given ourselves the nourishment and the calories that we need to be able to function a full, healthy, happy life. So that's kind of a quick little rundown of what I'd like to talk about today. And I'd like to start out with the idea first that there are specific things that have happened to us in the past that might predispose us to carrying extra weight. And I'm going to mention a protocol or a whole system of understanding our bodies called recall healing. And you can go online if you'd like to YouTube and look at the word recall healing and look up the name Gilbert Renaud, which is actually spelled like Gilbert Renaud, Gilbert, and the last name Renaud. And Gilbert speaks there about the whole arena of recall healing, and he does some really beautiful talks on specific illnesses. But in recall healing, we look not only at illnesses, we can look at conditions and compensation patterns that our body has made up. So if some of you are like me, you might have found that no matter what you did, you just couldn't lose weight. I used to be over 200 pounds, and it was for about 17 years. And it was the craziest experience I ever had. Because, people would just say, Meridian, this doesn't make any sense. I had friends who I ran into years later. They didn't know it was me, and we talked, and when they spoke about me, they talked about this crazy lady who lived in a teepee and only ate an apple or two a day, which wasn't quite true, but not too far from the truth. And I was still a big girl. I was weighing 200 pounds. So it's that kind of craziness that happens to some of us, and there are many reasons that that can happen. So on the psycho-spiritual side of things, fear of abandonment, especially during the time when our parents were carrying us in the womb, can be a primary issue around the need for the body to carry more weight, to protect ourselves from the pain of being abandoned. And also the issue of overeating can oftentimes be a way to numb ourselves from the pain of life. And if we eat too much, you kind of notice that you get numbed down, and it's almost like a barbiturate in a way. It makes you feel tired and blah, and you don't feel as much, and you also want to go to sleep. And wanting to go to sleep, actually, after you eat is a pretty good sign that you may actually have insulin resistance or blood sugar issues. And those blood sugar issues and insulin issues, which we're not going to get into today, it's way too complex, is one of the primary reasons that women put weight on. It is when they have unhealthy levels of insulin. it's called insulin resistance. And diabetes is also another reason when it's type 2. So anyway, abandonment issues and just closing down, not wanting to experience some things that are going on in life is one big reason that women will either overeat or try and create more of a boundary for themselves, a bigger armoring against the world. The other one that's really interesting to me is that babies, women who, when they were when they were first born, were either preemies or for some reason were put into incubators, and they were low weight as babies, and in order to get out of the incubator, they had to gain weight. They had to get bigger. And so they were unconsciously programmed from the time they were first born to want to be bigger in order to be safe. It's pretty interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. And then some women who have that like extra 10 pounds on that they just can't get off, or 20 pounds on that they can't get off, has to do with having a miscarriage or a stillborn. And so they had that weight of that baby in their body, and they're trying to unconsciously carry the baby with them. And when those things are understood, then the body, no longer the brain, the autonomic nervous system in the brain that's trying to protect us all the time, the only way it can communicate is through the body itself. So it creates metaphors through the body. And so in this case, the metaphor in the body is carrying extra weight. It's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So, that is a solution for many women where you don't even have to change what you're doing in the outer world. You just find that when you are willing to do some of the work of exploring in yourself what is the cause of your weight issues, you can actually start losing the weight. So we do sessions in the office to help people get in touch with these sorts of things. And we use a timeline, and we use recommendations for people to talk with their mothers and fathers, or people who were present at their birth, to find out exactly what took place during the birth, if there was anesthesia, things like that going on. And all these things really help us to understand our unconscious patterns and why we might be doing some of the things that might be contributing to carrying excess weight. There's a lot more than that, but that gives you a quick little idea.
Yeah.
And boy, that incubator thing is huge. When women find out that they were actually preemies and they were in an incubator and they're carrying extra weight, oftentimes just that awareness alone, they just start dropping weight. And, in 6 months to a year, they're down to a normal, healthy weight again. So it's really profound how our bodies are trying to protect us. The other thing, of course, is actually what we put in our mouths.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. Especially in this day and age, because it's become harder and harder for people to find real food. And when I say real food, I mean food that nature provides to us. Food that hasn't been tainted with unnatural, unhealthy soils, and where the seeds themselves haven't been tampered with. Genetically modified foods can really, really wreak havoc with our bodies. I'm not going to get into the details of that today. We can talk about it another time, but just know that something called sulfation, which has to do with our brain and our neurology and our body's ability to break down toxins in the body, is greatly affected by GMO foods. So you can look that up on the internet if you want to get more information about it, but the bottom line, and there's some wonderful, wonderful programs that you can look into on One Radio Network, I believe it's called, .com, with Patrick Timpone. if you look up GMO foods there's 2 or 3 of the world's experts from universities talking about these issues and just how all-pervasive and devastating they can be to our body over time. Studies where animals literally who were fed a diet that was all GMO foods, their whole stomachs fell apart and things like that.
Wow, yeah.
It's really scary. So anyway, that piece is important. But what is really important as far as weight loss goes is your unique biochemistry. Because each of us has very different needs. And when our body is nourished properly and not given more than what we need, then our bodies will start to come back to balance. And it happens without deprivation. And that's a really big deal. There are ways that we can trick the body with hormones and things like HCG that are very powerful and can really help people lose weight. And I have used HCG, particularly in the homeopathic format, with hundreds of people in the past. But I only do it with them when they make a promise to look at their biochemical individuality afterwards and focus on bringing their body into balance. Because the HCG, if you haven't heard of it before, human chorionic gonadotrophin, it basically is a hormone that women have in abundance when they're pregnant. And during that time, the body wants to protect the fetus no matter what. And that means keeping mom healthy. And in times of famine, and in places like in India or Bosnia or places like that, women who are starving still are able to bring babies to full term. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because of the HCG. What the HCG does is it, first of all, starts with any unhealthy fat on the body, and it breaks that down to provide nutrients for the baby. And it, as long as you're just breaking down unhealthy fat, it will provide you with all the nutrients that you need to function. So people can actually eat like a 500 calorie diet, but break down 2,000 calories worth of unhealthy fat and daily lose weight without feeling exhausted, grumpy, or any of those things, actually feeling wonderful. And you know when it's time to stop when you start feeling tired, because then what has happened is you've burned through all your unhealthy fat and you're starting to go into muscle.
Okay.
So it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And we've done that with homeopathic remedies, and I done detox remedies at the same time. And I feel that if people do HCG, the homeopathic remedies for detox are extremely important to do along with it.
Okay.
And the reason being is the fat is the primary storehouse for toxins. Mm-hmm. So, again, I don't do this with people until they've done a week or 2 of homeopathic detox to prepare the liver, the kidney, and the lymphatic system for an excess load of toxins. When people have not done that and gone ahead and done the HCG itself, they usually get headaches and feel sick and feel tired and don't want to go anywhere or do anything when they do the HCG. But when they start out with the detox, then they're able to do the remedies effectively and feel great through the whole process. So it's really fascinating. It's also important to look at, do an actual blood workup and take a look and make sure that we don't have any major problems with anemia or blood sugar issues or heart issues. And if we do, that they're being well managed before we start working with the HCG and daily check them. Because so many of the people that I was working with found their blood sugars when they had diabetes dropping daily. And so we had them checking their blood sugar 2 or 3 times a day, and they found that they no longer needed any medication for their blood sugar. So we had them work with their medical doctor, and their doctor saw that their blood sugar levels were dropping, so they had to reduce the medication so that they didn't go into a coma from low blood sugar. And the same thing was happening with people's blood pressure. We have them check their blood pressure daily if they're on blood pressure meds. And I've seen over and over and over again that people's blood pressure came down, their weight came down, they felt fantastic, and they were really happy.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very exciting to see what can happen when you use the proper thing for a person. Now, I don't think that HCG is the right thing for everybody, but certainly metabolic typing is. And metabolic typing helps us to discover which of over 5,000 body types that we are. And then we can fine-tune that with the genetic information these days. And at our office, we have a special software for taking a look at your gene SNPs and seeing what pathways may be challenged because of your genetics. And that would help us to understand foods that might be intense methylators, and if you're an over-methylator, we want to not increase your methylation. We want to actually reduce it.
Okay.
And if you're an under-methylator, then we want to methylate. So, I mean, it's just little things like that that we're able to see by doing this kind of testing what will help your body actually to lose weight. And there's very few people I've come across over the years that have difficulty ultimately with losing weight if they do what we find is really beneficial for them. And that's always a big deal. Are you willing to make some changes? So let me talk to you about some of the big changes that oftentimes are required and how to make that easier. Okay?
Okay.
So a lot of people have issues where they love sugar and they love things that are made with sugar and they crave it, and it's almost like an addiction. In fact, honestly, it is an addiction because sugar, when it's ingested, actually creates a chemical in the brain that's identical to the same chemical that's made in the brain when people are alcoholics.
Wow, yeah.
So you literally are addicted to sugar when you can't stop eating it, for the people that are like that. And the even bigger one is gluten, because gluten actually creates something called gluteomorphine. So it's like a morphine drug. And I remember about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when I finally took my weight off, the hardest thing for me to let go of was things like whole grain crackers and my own homemade bread that I used to make with spelt flour and things like that. You know, you'd think that would have been healthy for you, but I was so addicted to the gluten, the morphine response, that was one of the most challenging things to do. So what do we do in a situation like that? There are two neurotransmitters that are really, really helpful. When people have sugar cravings, we find that tryptophan can really be helpful in reducing those sugar cravings. And we have people actually open up a tryptophan capsule directly into their mouth. Sometimes they need two, sometimes more even in the beginning. But if you do that when you get your sugar cravings, within 5 minutes they go away.
Wow.
And then we find for gluten that there's something called D-phenylalanine. And D-phenylalanine is something that we've found as an amino acid where you do the same thing. You actually, with tryptophan or D-phenylalanine, you can buy it in powder, I guess, or you can do the capsules. And you can open up the capsules, which of course are easier to carry with you during the day if you're working or out in the world. And you open up a capsule or two of the D-phenylalanine, and there goes your pasta craving or your pizza craving or your bread and butter craving. So it's there's things that we can do like that that really help people to get through the initial phase. It's really like kicking a drug.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have the same kinds of reactions that people do when they're going off of morphine. It's really amazing.
Wow, yeah.
If they go cold turkey on these things. And especially gluten is essential to go cold turkey on for some people. Because for some people, one bite will give them a 6-month reaction.
Yes.
So, and that's not a good thing.
No.
Another day when we're talking about gluten, we can go into looking at the biochemistry of all that and how it affects people in different ways, and the toxic responses that can cause everything from headaches to pain in different muscles and things like that.
So back to the D-phenylalanine, how is that different than just phenylalanine? Isn't phenylalanine in like diet sodas and...
No, that's something different. That is, I forget the actual name for it, aspartame is not phenylalanine.
Right.
And phenylalanine is actually a natural amino acid that's found in our brains. And there's 2 forms. There's one that's D-phenylalanine and the other's L-phenylalanine.
Oh, okay.
L-phenylalanine is very, it's stimulating, and it works on the dopamine pathway. And I hope I'm not giving you too much information here.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But dopamine is something that gives you drive, ambition, and energy. So people who are low in dopamine have very little drive, ambition, and oftentimes low sex drives as well. And when we give them the 2 amino acids that really help the dopamine pathway are tyrosine and phenylalanine. And L-phenylalanine is normally what we give to people when they have low dopamine, because it gives them energy. D-phenylalanine, on the other hand, is very calming. It creates a sense of well-being, almost like a euphoria, but not really. And it seems to have a direct effect on our cravings for starches. And people use it for pain, especially for pain that keeps them awake when they're sleeping. You'd never use L-phenylalanine if you're going to sleep, but D-phenylalanine is used for pain that keeps you awake at night, and oftentimes it helps so many people with sleeping. So that's that particular one. But the key is, and I know this might sound hard to believe for those of you who've worked so hard at losing weight and feel so much craving and never full or never satisfied. When you find the right combination of foods for you and the basic nutrients that match your genetics, that match your ancestry, that match you for now, then you are not hungry after a meal and you don't crave food in between. And sugar cravings themselves are a direct sign that you did not have a balanced meal beforehand. Because the sugar is a desire for quick energy. That's what it does in the body. It gives you this quick, fast energy. And if you didn't get the proper nutrients in your meal before, then you're going to crave sugar to give you the quick energy that you need. And you'll get this quick energy, and then you'll go quickly, just as quickly or even more quickly, down as that sugar's burnt up and you feel tired, exhausted, and you want to take a nap or eat more sugar again, or drink caffeine, or combination of both colas or whatever that are loaded with sugar and caffeine. So that's what that's about. And another time we can talk about the amino acid that you can use for coffee instead of coffee, that helps people get off of caffeine addictions, because once again that's related to the dopamine pathway. But anyway, when it comes to dieting, what really helps if you want to have a lifestyle that leads to healthy life and balanced weight is to find out your specific dietary needs. And the 2 kinds of testing are really relatively inexpensive. Metabolic type testing is only like $75. And you can go online to 23andMe, I believe, and I don't get any kind of a kickback from this. It's $99, and you can do that yourself, and then bring that in, and we can actually put it through the software and identify what kinds of imbalances you have that would work for your specific body to make sure that we're not contributing to weight issues, but also contributing to weakening organs that are already sensitive and potentially problem organs. So that information is really valuable on a lot of levels. So those are the two primary things that I really think are super important for people. And one of the areas I did specific training in, we've talked about a little bit before, and maybe we'll do a whole talk on it one day, is GAPS.
Okay.
The Gut and Psychology Syndrome diet, developed by a woman who was a neurosurgeon from Russia whose child was born with severe autism. And through study and trial and error, she came up with a diet that she used for her son, and then used, modified by the individuality of the children, with hundreds of children, and was able to actually turn around all the autistic symptoms in these children, some of whom looked like they were going to be wards of the state forever because there was no real communication with the world, no speaking, all that sort of thing. These kids ended up going to college, getting married, being happy, fully functioning people. And, there's a lot of work along these lines, but on the dietary level, I've never found anything that's made more sense. And it has to do with eating healthy fats and healthy proteins that have, once again, to do with the genetic diet for that particular child. But the understanding that we've been led down a really silly road that's made us as a nation fatter and fatter and fatter by focusing on low fat, on omega-6 types of fats, vegetable oils, and thinking that those are much better than animal fats. And the animal fats are so important for our brain function, for our hormones, for the flexibility of our joints, and the lubrication of our entire system. And our ancestors just seemed to know that. When they would kill an animal, the most important parts for them were the fatty parts and the fat itself. And they would oftentimes leave behind all of the lean meat and only eat the fat and the fatty parts and the organs.
Interesting.
That's right. And if they had enough food, they would not eat the cuts that we think that are the best, like the steaks and things like that, and the lean parts of the meat. So we have a big area that we need to get educated on. Clearly, people who come from southern India are people that are designed for a more vegetarian diet. But even they have whole milk products, which is animal fat. From the whole milk, they would never work with 2% milk or non-fat milk or anything like that. And they cooked with ghee, which is made from butter, and they take off the milk solids and just work with the fat that's inside the butter. My cell phone is going there in the background. And I guess the last thing I want to make a quick little remark or two about is just how many products are out there being marketed these days as weight loss products. And there are some that work for certain people, and but the big deal is that the marketing itself is designed to make you feel insecure and think that you can get away with just taking an herb or a combination of herbs or something like that in order to lose weight. And again, those herbs are very distinct for certain body types. So, like for instance, I was just looking